Hello and welcome. This is the movie discussion pocket dimension where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. We're back kicking off February. That's Jay and I'm Cole. And we've been a bit directionless lately, but we do have a plan going forward. And this is I don't want to say this is like a stopgap episode or anything like that. It's always a movie that we wanted to do, but it's not something I had really thought of until Jay had brought it up. And I thought, why not? So this is I think the only Austrian movie I've ever seen, possibly. I've seen German language movies, but they usually were German; they weren't Austrian. And this is Goodnight, Mommy from 2014. It's a bit different in that it has co-directors, Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz, and that they're like a filmmaking duo. They co-wrote and co-directed it, and that's how they work. They've done 3 movies that way, but they're a little different if you look into them. Do you know the relationship is that they are an aunt and a nephew?
Oh no, I did not know that.
So that's kind of a different thing. Because the first thing I saw, like when I clicked on the link, was like one was 20 years older than the other, and I was like, oh. Then I find out it's her nephew. So that's kind of a different thing. And Goodnight, Mommy was their first, I believe.
Have you seen The Lodge?
Yeah, see, I thought I did, but apparently not. I must have seen something else in German that I'm confusing for, because that's the other thing. I was like, The Lodge, yeah, I saw that. And then I looked
No,
into it, and
it's
like,
English. It's English.
oh, it
language.
isn't? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought I saw it, but apparently I didn't. Like, maybe I just had read a lot about it at some point, looking for other stuff. Oh, you were hearing something?
No, sorry, I don't know. That was you or me that clicked out. Doesn't matter.
I feel like it's usually me. That's the annoying thing is like when this stuff happens, I can't tell. I don't see it as it's happening, which is frustrating. Like I'm not getting that. Like one thing that StreamYard usually does though is like it lets me know if I've got sort of like a low signal. I'm not getting that right now, so I'm not sure, but we'll just have to be conscious because I don't want a repeat of our last episode where I actually got kicked off a couple times, which hadn't happened in a long time.
Yeah, The Lodge is actually a pretty good movie. From like 2 years ago, something like that.
Fairly recent, yeah.
It's. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's
2019.
The only thing I have to say about it is like, I mean, I like the movie, but I figured it out way too quickly. You know what exactly is going on. So
Alicia Silverstone's in it. Man, I haven't seen her in anything in I don't know how long. It's good to know that she's still in movies in 2019.
Yeah. And Elvis's granddaughter, Riley Keough, or however you pronounce her last name.
Keough, yeah. I didn't know that's who she was, but yeah. I haven't really. I guess she was in The Runaways, which
She's
I did
done a
see.
lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. She's not a name I know, but I guess I've seen her around. But yeah, I guess that's their most recent film. Let's see here. Yeah, they did. Oh no, they did a doc. Oh yeah, so Goodnight, Mommy was like their first like feature length film, but they did a documentary before that. So they did a documentary, then Goodnight, Mommy feature. Then The Field Guide to Evil is some sort of like anthology type film.
Oh, cool.
And then they did The Lodge in 2019. So I assume they probably have upcoming projects, but it doesn't say much about it here.
Yeah, the remake was the last thing I saw on there.
But yeah, speaking of figuring stuff out, I say like when I first saw this movie years ago, I didn't figure it out. Like,
oh, you'd seen it before?
Well, I mean, I think so, or at least almost all of it, or something. Okay. It's hard, like because when I saw the remake, when the remake came out in September, I was like, yeah, this is familiar, this story. So yeah, so I can't say I 100% definitely saw it all the way through the first time. I feel like maybe I saw parts of it. I mean, 2014, I'm trying to think, well, what circumstances would I have seen it in then? If I saw it, did it show up streaming somewhere and somebody mentioned it to me? It's hard to remember. It's a little bit jumbled.
I know anyway, it was one of the first ones on the list of stuff I wanted to do on the show.
Yeah, and at the time, back then, I hadn't seen it.
I'd lost my master list, but it was on there pretty high up. So,
right. We started the show at the end of 2016. This movie came out in 2014, I think, released around here in 2015. So I'm trying to think of the timeline. Maybe it was maybe 3 years ago that I saw at least some of it. I don't know. All I know is that by the time I watched the remake back in September, like I knew the twists, I knew what was coming and everything like that, and it had to be based on something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little confusing, but I can remember like not knowing it at one point. Like I remember knowing it in the remake and not knowing it at some point. So I don't know. I mean, when you obviously a subsequent rewatch, you can tell we do full spoilers, people. So we will be getting into the twist because this is a movie that has a twist.
It's pretty important to the plot too. So
Yeah.
we
So
couldn't
use
talk
your
very
own.
much about anything if we didn't talk about that.
Right. So use your own discretion here if you want to keep watching. Because if you think, oh, I'd like to see it sometime,
But
you don't know anything about it. You know,
you
we're
figure
gonna
this
start
out in
spoiling.
like 5 minutes into the movie, so it's not like something that takes a long time.
See, I feel like I did see the original version before the remake, and I feel like I have a memory of not knowing that and like being a bit surprised. But
It's
I don't
been a
know. It
long
is.
time since I've seen it, so I had actually forgotten about that the brothers actually did. I mean, I was like, wait, is he dead? Okay.
You had forgotten that. Wow, I don't. That's like the crux of the movie right there.
Yeah.
So there's. I mean, we'll get into it too because they did an American remake that came out back in September with Naomi Watts, and it's not as good, obviously, but they does do some things I think that are interesting, and some of them things that I would have helped in the original. I think.
Yeah.
So it's not all bad exactly.
That's actually why you brought this up, I think, because I mentioned the remake the other day. I finally watched it. It's streaming somewhere. And,
I think Prime.
Oh, okay.
I think that's where I saw it anyway.
I mean, it's fine. It doesn't really do a lot of anything different. And the kids are really good. The twins, they're the twins from show with Nicole Kidman. I forget, it's on HBO, but they're from that show. So
yeah.
So I did recognize them.
Do they play twins in that, or is that where they were playing the same character?
They play twins in
They
that
play
too.
twins. It's funny. Like we're used. It. I almost feel like, isn't it weird that like we're used to seeing twins as kids, but twins as adults kind of disappear in movies? Like, when's the last time you saw a movie that
That's
had
true.
like twin adults starring actual twins? Not like something
Right.
like when we like say we did the Jeremy Irons one.
Yeah.
That's Jeremy Irons playing twins. But when's the last time you saw like twin actors like playing like twins in a movie when they were adults? I can only think of it happening in like kids movies. It's like, do twins disappear once they become adults? We don't want to see them anymore.
I can't think of adult twin actors. I mean, I can think of the Sklar brothers. They're like a comedian.
And that's kind of the other thing, right? Like, so that's what I wonder about these kids. If they were, or at least, I mean, they're recent. So I just mean, let's think about the European kids, the Austrian or Germans or whatever they were. Like, they were like, I wonder, like, are they still act like they'd be adults now? They'd be like in their early 20s, I guess. Are they still acting? Are they both still acting? I'd have to look into it, I guess. But yeah, right now those guys are still kids. The movie having been shot quite recently. Those guys.
Yeah, it must just be that one or both, retire from acting.
Because I mean, the most famous twins I can think of were the Olsen twins, and their whole thing was they were always working together. Like there was no such thing as like having one without the other. It was like they're the twins and they're going to play twins, and it seemed like the same thing. Once they became adults, like that's a lot less appealing. We don't care anymore. Go away, and they just basically stepped back from acting and concentrated on their other business ventures, which made them super rich anyway. Because they're like what, like 17 or 18 for like New York Minute, and then that's the end. You don't see them anymore.
Yeah.
I know.
No, I mean, I think they did stuff individually, but not together.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah,
it's like we don't want to see adult twins. It's weird. We'll accept it with kids, but we don't want to see adult twins. But yeah, anytime it seems to me there are adult twins in a plot, it's not real life twins playing them. It's just an actor they're using, twice. Like dead ringers, like we said.
Maybe the two guys from Gremlins 2 and Terminator 2.
Oh yeah, I remember them. I mean, they're used for special effects type shots. Well, like, the whole point is it's not a special effect, right? It's like it's just twins. That is kind of a funny moment in a movie that's really known, Terminator 2, it's known for its groundbreaking special effects. How'd they pull this one off? Well, that one's just something they would have done back in like the 50s or 60s. That's just twins. There's no effect there.
Yeah.
Makes me think of like the original Parent Trap with Haley Mills they would do back in the 60s. It still looks pretty decent the way they shot it. You'd buy that, there's two of them.
How did they do that?
I don't know exactly what the process is, but
would have been pretty rudimentary back then, I would imagine.
Yeah, because it was 61. So we're talking.
Well, like the Patty Duke show did it like back in the 50s. So, and it, it's not perfect looking, but
I can't really find anything about technical aspects of it. Talking about shooting locations here, but nothing really particular about how they did. That's sort of one of the lesser known things that the Sherman brothers composed songs for. They were the big songwriting duo, mostly for Disney, did a lot of famous songs, but they also contributed songs to The Parent Trap, including Let's Get Together, which made the pop charts at the time. I remember being just really enchanted by that song and that performance at the time with the two. Haley Mills had a big crush on her, which I've spoken of before.
Lindsay Lohan does a good job in the remake.
I know I saw the remake, but it was way back when, so I don't remember. I'm sure she does.
I saw it recently for some reason. Somebody had it on, and
in the 80s and 90s, they did at least 2 sequels to the original one that I saw because I remember them coming on Family Channel, and they were garbage.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen those.
I don't. Haley Mills might even be one of them because it's about the next generation. It's about even if it's not Haley Mills, it's supposed to be her character. It's her kids. I don't know. I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's she's the adult now, and that's her kids. All I can really remember is there's 2 girls, and they're not twins or anything, and they're friends. And I remember they're both about 13, and they're meeting at a McDonald's. And I remember being young enough to think it'll be great when I'm old enough where I can go meet my friend at a McDonald's, where I will have that independence, right? Because I was still probably under 10 maybe when it came out.
McDonald's is looked at differently now than it was when we were kids because I had a birthday party at McDonald's one time and it was cool,
Yeah, I went to a couple birthday parties at McDonald's.
But I mean, nobody would ever do that now. I'd be like, man, that's trash. What are you doing?
That's child abuse. Yeah. I've been talking about before, exactly. I mean, they were always. We grew up with the marketing for kids. There was kids' meals and toys and, the Ronald McDonald and all those characters. And then it was just at some point towards the end of the 90s, it's this is making children fat. We got to pivot away from this. So they didn't get rid of it, but they had to revamp it all. It's now it'll come with apple slices and things like that. And ever since basically the start of the 2000s, McDonald's, I haven't seen it as much recently, but I remember they went hard for it in the early mid 2000s. Suddenly McDonald's was now for young, hip, teens and 20 somethings. It's this, this is on a budget, you don't have much money, you don't have a job, a career or whatever, so it's the hip, cool place. And I was so used to growing up with them always, they would change their slogan and stuff every few years. I remember there was food, folks, and fun. What you want is what you get at McDonald's today. It was one. A really big one in the late 90s was Have You Had Your Break Today? That was super popular. It was a really popular one. And I know there were more, but they got into I'm Loving It into 2003 with Justin Timberlake, and that was it for the next 20 years.
Is that still it?
I don't know if they still say I'm Loving It, but they'll still do the I'm that's 20 years old now.
Is it Have It Your Way? I know I've heard somebody that's got that.
I don't know.
Have It Your Way.
That could even be Burger King. I don't know.
They
had to make that pivot away from that. Yeah, so it was McDonald's was a place where it was basically seen as a kid's place. Adults might like the food there themselves, but it was really about bringing your kids there. It was a place where it's cheap and easy, and kids will like it. And I mean, that works with most fast food. Plus, you can get toys and all that shit. And then they just had to hard turn away from that and be okay, we have to completely revamp this. And by the time Super Size Me came out in 2004, it's this is killing us.
Oh yeah, they revamped their menu. They got rid of
supersizing.
Supersize, yeah. Which Orc is still pissed off about.
Just order 2 Orc.
He brings it up all the time. But No, they had like a bunch of
It's
stupid shit on their menu. Like it was like a salad, but it was in a drink cup, and you
Oh,
would like
yeah.
put the dressing on and shake it up. Like that
Shake
was
it
the whole
up.
thing.
Try to make it
Shaking.
seem cool, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's weird because like even as a kid, I did not like McDonald's. I haven't had a McDonald's hamburger since I was about 9 years old. That's the last time I've ever had a McDonald's hamburger. I'm not going to say so. I mean, as an adult, the only time I ever go to McDonald's is maybe to get a sundae, and I haven't done that in God knows when. Because most of the time their machine is broken, and that's like a thing too. Like there's no priority. Apparently, that's part of their business thing. Is like it's not a big priority for them to fix their ice cream machines when they break, so they can go months at a time without fixing them, which is
Is that what it is?
retarded.
I just thought it was someone didn't clean it or something. So we're just going to tell people it's broken.
That could even be part of it
Because
too. All I know is like they don't prioritize it. Like that's
there's an
like part
app.
of like that's like part of the playbook for McDonald's is if your ice cream machine
Like,
breaks down, you'll fix it, whenever you fix it. It's not a big deal. We don't care.
and let's take fucking ice cream off the menu then, because you're
It's the
just
only
going to piss
reason I
people
went.
off. Yeah.
It's the only reason I went.
There's an app that you can look and see if your McDonald's ice cream machine is working.
I
I don't know how good it works.
I should get it because it's like literally the only reason I go to McDonald's, and I haven't been in one in 1,000 years.
I was like,
But,
I don't need to.
I've just never liked McDonald's, but it doesn't mean, I've eaten fast food growing up and now, so it's not like I'm against any of that. It was weird because like I was always used to McDonald's being around. It just wasn't food I ate. But I mean,
Yeah.
I knew the commercials and the jingles, and I had friends that went to McDonald's, and sometimes I get dragged along with them, and I might eat like some chicken McNuggets or something because I just couldn't stand their burgers. But remember they also did because it was weird.
Favorite movie.
That's a funny movie, but I had some weird moments too. We're like we gone too far in the kid direction. Now we have to get back to adults. So remember, the Arch Deluxe was like made like specifically for adults. I don't exactly know how that works because it's a burger. I don't know what that means. Ryan used to eat it a couple times, so maybe he could explain what made it adult or different. Nowadays, the main thing, like my parents say, they're like, McDonald's has the best coffee around. They're like, McDonald's coffee is way better than Tim Hortons. That's what most people say. So a lot of people go to McDonald's just to get coffee because they say it's it's not too expensive and it's actually quite good. So
their breakfast is pretty good. I will give them that, but.
That's what my parents would go for breakfast. See, I'm not a breakfast person. I don't like breakfast foods. I know that blows people's minds, but I just don't. They've never I can eat it. I just never do eat it. But anyway, that's what my parents might do every once in a while. So they might go get breakfast there, and that'll reflect on how the coffee's good.
Not to fully sidetrack.
Yeah, McDonald's image. I don't know what the hell it is now.
They used to have this thing. It was called the Mc DLT, I think it was. Whatever the name was, and it was a styrofoam thing with two different compartments where like the hot ingredients and the cold ingredients were separated, and then like when you got ready to eat it, you would put them together. So I guess the vegetables stay cold or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember the title of it, McDLT. I didn't remember. Oh, I am actually leaving out a big part, and I don't want to again take us too far, but I mean there was a time in the 90s where I did go to McDonald's, and that was for the pizza. I liked McDonald's pizza. And I hate how they always tease that they're going to bring it back. And it's like, no, we're just not. Apparently, the biggest McDonald's in the world is somewhere down in Florida. It's like 2 floors. It's massive. And it basically anything that was ever on the menu at any point, they kept. So you can get McDonald's pizza at that McDonald's.
Do they have McDonald's spaghetti?
They might have. I don't know.
That sounds gross, doesn't it?
It does. But I mean, I was surprised by how good the pizza was because by this point I had made my change. I was like, I don't like McDonald's. That's not where I'm going to go get food and stuff. And I actually wound up liking the pizza quite a bit. And I can't believe with so many people seem to really like it and talk about it that McDonald's just won't go back to it. Big extra. So yeah, see, I remember a lot of these names and things. But and the other one, the even earlier before Arch Deluxe and all that was the Mac Tonight campaign, right? Around 1990 or so. It's like we want to let people know they're up late. I love how that was like the first break in Doug. What's his name? Is it Doug Jones? Doug Jones.
I was about to say as Doug Jones. Yeah.
You want to talk about interesting careers? I bring up various people. People that took a very different path to do very different things. The big one for me is always Jim Henson, right? He's a puppeteer. It's like, where are you gonna get as a fucking puppeteer? You're gonna be doing kids' birthday parties, and instead he like revolutionizes entertainment, and he's huge influence and all this stuff. Institution, the Muppets are classics. Doug Jones, I think, is another one because this is a guy that was like he went to like college for like performing arts, but like he did like mime you know, that kind of stuff. It's like, what are you going to be, a circus performer? Because he's like this tall, gangly guy, but he's got really, you know, he can really like contort himself and things like that. It's like, well, you know, what are you going to do with that exactly? And he somehow gets the gig as Mac Tonight, and it opens up the door for these various acting things. And it turns out, if you want a tall, gangly, you know, monster-looking thing in your movie, Doug Jones, he'll do it, you know. And you know, he for people who aren't as familiar with his career, like remember Pan's Labyrinth, the big crazy thing with the eyes on his hands, that's Doug Jones. Remember in Hellboy, Abe Sapien, that's Doug Jones. So it's crazy to think that's sort of what opened the door for him for getting on screen was Mac Tonight.
He's made a career out of being really uncomfortable for long periods of time.
Yeah. So I always respect like people that have like such a different sort of career path, and yet they've found their way and made a real impact. It's pretty cool.
Well, fuck, man, Jim Henson, like none of this stuff would exist if it wasn't for him. You know, like didn't he do Sesame Street too and all that? Like Sesame Street, You know, obviously the Muppets. You know, Dark Crystal.
Yep.
I mean, like all the. I mean, God.
I mean, Jim Henson's Creature Shop, right? Like, besides Muppets, also just would do various like, you know, creature effects for all sorts of movies.
Did they work on Jurassic Park?
It's possible.
No,
I don't know.
It's they've done a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think that they would be affiliated with.
There is some, I'm sure, if I looked into it, but yeah. But you just start out as like a puppeteer.
What's up, Ork?
Ork, you missed all the good fast food talk. You got it out of the way. Get back to the movie.
Ork, how do you feel about Supersize going away? Is that cool with you?
Are you at peace with it? Supersize it.
That shit was ridiculous, man. You get like a bucket of fries. My God.
It's a bit much. See, now I can see I do have a weak signal. Oh, it just went up a bit there. Didn't they do a thing in like New York State where like they like actually like outlawed certain sizes of like pop soda or whatever? It's like you can't actually sell like that size anymore. It's too big. It's irresponsible to sell somebody, you know, a pop that big or something.
They put a tax on it, I think. What's it called? Not a sin tax, but yeah. It's like, oh, hey, fatty, just buy 2 fucking Cokes, you know? If you need that much fucking beverage.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a person that needs a lot of beverage. It's funny because I'm not a big eater, but I am a big drinker. Like, maybe I don't drink it fast, but I will eventually drink it all. So I'm used to that. But there are limits, I suppose. I don't need something that looks, you know, too unwieldy. They remind you of like a bucket or whatever. But yeah, I can remember like they like passed some sort of law, and I remember other states were making fun of them, saying, and then you know some people wanted to be like, what? Where does this end? The state's telling us what we can and can't eat, you know, all that stuff that people like.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not entirely wrong, I suppose, but you know, this is the type of thing people like to focus on when there's much bigger issues going on. This is like what some like politician decides to like champion. I will make sure that everybody can buy any size Coke they want. Okay, great.
But I mean, it's not going to stop someone from, if they want to drink 5 of them, you know, they're going to do what they want to do. I mean, I don't know. I get it, but I think the problem is a little deeper than changing the drink sizes.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing as like, you know, they sell alcohol and tobacco products. There's various rules and laws in it, but at the end of the day, those things are harmful. But people can still
only
buy
sell alcohol at this time, from this time to this time, on these days.
Yeah, that dry state stuff is weird as hell to me. Like dry counties, I mean, like
we just got like liquor. We got beer probably 10 years ago, and we just got liquor in this county.
So yours had been a dry county.
Mm-hmm. It was completely dry.
So you had to like drive outside of the area.
Yeah.
Oh, what a pain in the ass that is. Because I mean, that's just all people. That's also all people are going to do.
Well, you're giving your tax dollars to another county. I mean, it's stupid.
Yeah,
you're not going to stop people from drinking.
Yeah, they tried that whole thing called Prohibition. You might remember. Remember how well that worked?
That turned out well for a few people.
Yeah, criminals.
Kennedy.
Yeah, they made money off it. Bootlegging, right?
The town that I went to college in, they had a law that the beer could not be sold cold. So all the beer was hot. Like, that's going to stop the college kids from drinking beer. It's like, dude, I'll drink a fucking hot beer. You know, I don't care.
Plus, I think if they really wanted to, they have the means to make it cold if they want to. They have their own freezers or fridges. They could put it in.
Yeah, we just have to get a cooler and put it in there for a few minutes. It's stupid. It's really dumb.
Can't sell it cold. I hadn't heard that. That's a new one on me. Yeah. Doesn't surprise me because I know they've done all sorts of weird things.
That's the only place I've ever heard of it, but it's awfully odd. Yeah. If we wanted to be like treat ourselves, we'd drive to the county over and get cold beer. You know, like, oh, we're gonna be fancy today.
So years ago, they had the big thing. You know, about 15 years ago or so, about trans fats. Mm-hmm. It was all about what foods contain trans fats, what you could do about that, you know, and that I remember a lot of people freaking out over that. That seems to have mostly gone away. Most people don't even remember it. I remember
you don't even hear that term anymore. Yeah.
No, but it was a big, big deal at the time, to the point where a lot of foods will come out and they'll be like, this is trans fat free. It's like, okay, thank God. I mean, it's kind of like, I think gluten kind of replaced it, right? Because now it's about being gluten free.
Yeah.
I mean, I think trans fats are almost the same thing as gluten. Don't quote me on that, but they're obviously similar.
Gluten is wheat? Yeah, I think so.
All I know is that certain stuff gluten-free is garbage, because I remember once I accidentally bought gluten-free pasta, and it was, you would think, oh, well, pasta doesn't like have much taste in or anything, right? Like, you know, you give it its own taste with sauces and things like that. But I'm telling you, it was bad, because it wasn't just taste. It was like, it was all sticky, and it was just terrible. I was like, what the fuck am I eating? And I realized this is the gluten-free. Oh my God. This is terrible.
Huh. Yeah, I think it's wheat. I don't know.
But trans fats was a big deal for a couple of years back then. I remember there was a big thing about people on all sides of the issue talking about how harmful they were, or how who cares, just, you know, let people eat what they want, and how certain brands were making changes so their stuff would be gluten or trans fat free or whatever, and people were upset about it. It's like, can you even taste the difference? I don't know. But that was a pretty big deal for about 2 years, I'd say, sometime in the mid 2000s or so. When it came out, it's like, trans fats, they're making everybody fat and ruining everything.
Yeah. Do you remember? It was a new kind of oil called Olesta, and it was like the new hit thing. It was like chips. They did like a lot of potato chips that were
like a peanut oil, or
I don't know what it actually was, but it had a disclaimer on the bag of chips, like, this may make you like shit a whole lot, or however it was phrased, you know, like, and apparently these people were just shitting their guts out all the time and still eating the chips, and it wasn't good, so they took them off the market.
Was the oil supposed to like be a healthier alternative to the oils they were using?
Oh yeah, it's like, yeah, much less calories and less fat and stuff.
Yeah, but not much good if it's messing with your bowels, I guess.
No, they still make Bake Lays. That's not what I'm talking about. But you guys probably remember what I'm talking about. Yeah. You know, there it is. Was it Olean? That's it.
Okay.
And the chips the oil itself was called Olesta, or the chemical or whatever. But, you know, it's always some fad, you know, like Snackwells was a big brand at one point. Like, you could even buy the shit in the store. People would just, you know, buy all of them. Just these people. It's like 3 less calories per cookie, you know, just selling off.
It's not going to make a difference if you buy dozens of them.
Just eat one less, you know?
Yeah. But anyway, we gotten off track because I made an innocuous McDonald's comment.
Sorry.
When I was talking about one of the sequels to The Parent Trap, which came from twins, and this movie features twins. There we go, back on track. Bing, bang, boom.
Don't get me started on fast food.
So it's a sort of a minimalistic movie. I mean, it's mostly just 3 characters. There's a couple others that come in briefly, but it's a mother and 2 sons, 2 twin boys, Elias and
Is it Lucas?
yeah, Lucas. Yeah, Lucas is the one that she won't address.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some things in the remake that I do think help connect things a little better. They give you a little bit more context. Like they mentioned, like they hadn't seen their mother in a long time because after there recently been a divorce and the son had been with the father, and this was the first time seeing her, and she was of course having the surgery. I don't know if they give that context in the remake, even though not the remake, the original, even though I watched it the other day.
She briefly mentions it to the priest.
That there had been a divorce.
It's been really hard since the separation, is what the subtitles said. So.
Okay, there you go. I missed that. Okay, so that context is there. It just comes a little later.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Because I mean, yeah. So as the remake goes, it's not a shot-for-shot remake. It's the same story being told, but all the scenes are different. And as you might expect, when you get like an American English language thing, what's the more toned down one? What's the it's that one. It doesn't go as far as the original does in several ways. Just some of the general unpleasantness that you remember from the original. They're like, oh, we'll just tone that down or get rid of it, which I think is kind of stupid, but
yeah,
that was the choice.
Yeah, that's a bit much for an American remake. They torture their mom, or he tortures his mom for quite a while.
Yeah. So yeah, I can understand them toning it down, but I don't know. I always just wonder about what kind of audience appreciates that, like knows that the original has more, but they're like, I'm glad that they tone that down for my delicate sensibilities. I'm like, maybe just don't watch anything horror or thriller at all then.
Exactly.
I don't mean to make the argument either that like if you're watching horror or thriller, it always needs to have like particularly graphic or disturbing content. When you're doing something like a psychological thing, is like, no, because I mean this movie's not full of like violence or anything. It's really not. I mean, it just has a couple quick things here and there.
It's a very slow-paced movie. That's probably, I like that, but I can see people not liking that aspect of it.
Sure. Although, again, I wonder, like, if you call yourself, like, a fan of horror, especially, like, psychological horror, like, if you really do find yourself impatient with a movie that's trying to, like, create an atmosphere and build tension, then maybe it's just not the genre for you, really. Because, I mean, I think that's really what the movie is most successful at, is that it creates an atmosphere and it builds tension. There's a feeling something's going on here. And I think plenty of audiences might be on the boy's side saying, that's not our mother. She's not acting right. And she's very creepy and weird with those bandages on. And she's acting very strangely.
Did they ever say how he died?
Not in the original, no. Which I think, again, I don't think they needed to be exactly explicit, but they just say the accident, right?
The accident, right? But I was just curious because we know that she had the surgery, right? We know that they think that she's not their mother, but we don't know the dad. He's just gone. They're separated. We don't. They leave a lot out in the open, which is not a bad thing. But
yeah, because in the remake, I think they are dropped off by their dad,
mm-hmm.
and there's at least 1 or 2 times where it's understood she's on the phone to their dad. And actually, I do think the dialogue is a little better in the remake because she says something like not wanting to go along with it anymore or play along or pretend.
Mm-hmm.
And that fits better for helping, trick you. Whereas the dialogue is a little not as good in the original, where it's more like just something like how she can't deal with him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think is quite as good. I mean, they're both fine. Well, but it almost gives away too much. I feel like maybe not, because it's hard to extrapolate my memories of like watching this not knowing what's going to happen. As I said, like I feel like I saw that twist originally in the original and then sort of forgot about it, watched the remake, and had it all come back to me as I was watching the remake. So then watching the original again this time, I fully know everything that's supposed to happen. So I'm sort of on my guard watching for dialogue like that. And I feel like they make it a little too obvious in the original. The wording that she uses.
Uh-huh.
Although now I can't quite find it.
But it's basically just mental illness on both sides. Like she lost a son, she's not dealing with it very well. She's basically ignoring the other one that lived. He lost his twin brother, and his parents got divorced. and she's
Can't
having a
face
surgery. Like,
can't
great
face the
timing.
reality of it. Yeah, terrible timing.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's wrong, right? That is the mother. Is that what we're supposed to believe? Or, I mean,
Yeah.
the dream sequence at the very end is just bullshit, right?
What, where they all reunite?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just part of the bullshit. I mean, both versions do some dream sequences. Do you think they go too far in the remake because of that whole part where they like dream where she's like peeling her skin off to reveal like she's some sort of creature or something? I
I was
mean,
fine
they
with
have to
that.
do something different, I guess.
Yeah.
But I can see that's something I forgot because I was watching the originals. Like, aren't they going to show that in the original? Because I couldn't remember, and they don't. They don't show anything like that.
Yeah, it's apparently something called imposter syndrome. It has another fancy name, but so that's actually a mental illness where you believe that, you know, it's not the right person or whatever.
Right.
So it's
But I
interesting.
mean, the point of the movie is like they try to give you plausible reasons to think it's maybe true. For one thing, we don't get to see her face for the beginning. And the whole thing is once the bandages are off, she doesn't look the same because she's like a TV personality, so she got I think she just got reconstructive surgery to make herself look more attractive to be on TV. I assume.
You know, one scene she just totally covered up in bandages. The next she just shows up and looks, you know, fantastic. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can't even see any scars or anything.
I mean, it makes you think, she kept the bandages on way longer than she needed to? I don't know. Something like that. I do appreciate the added scene that Naomi Watts does where she's just creepily dancing. That does add a little bit to it.
It's hard to beat Naomi Watts. She's a great actress.
She is. And see, this is one of the things like where I almost want to say, like, I feel like she's the better actress of the two.
I'd agree with you.
With the better performance of the two. And I mean, people who know me know that's not usually how I do it. So it's not just me saying, oh, it's because she's familiar and because her lines are in English. Because often I feel like not exactly the opposite, but I just mean a good example is I really love the movie Departed. The Departed is a really great movie and it's just loaded of great actors. But at the same time, I can't quite enjoy The Departed the same way as the Chinese movie it's based on, Infernal Affairs, because at the end of the day, all those people are just sort of distracting to me because I just know them all so well. So I feel like I can just really concentrate on the story better with these Chinese actors who I'm not as familiar with. And of course, speaking a different language, you say it adds a barrier, but it also helps suck me into the story a little better than saying, oh, here's Jack Nicholson being Jack Nicholson, or Jack Nicholson being Jack Nicholson. In a way, I love The Departed. I do. And they are all some very good actors in there with good performances, but they're just so known and, you know, so in a way, it's a little bit distracting. So usually I'm on the other side of this. But this time, yeah, I feel like Naomi Watts is really good and probably a little bit better. Not that the other one's bad at any stretch of the imagination. They're both good at being pretty creepy and volatile.
Yeah, even the you know, the down the line cast is still like A-list stars in The Departed. It's
yeah, you'll have like smaller roles for like
the supporting
Mark Wahlberg and who's the other cop?
I was trying to think of it too. I can't.
Because it's Mark Wahlberg and Alec Baldwin, they're together, but then like the captain or whatever they're under is Martin. No, not Martin.
Scorsese.
That's what I want to say. But anyway, yeah, just everybody's a big name. Except the actress herself. Like, I know who she is, but the one that played the psychologist or whatever, like, she was not really as known as, like, all these, like, male actors around her. Nothing matters. But I mean, pretty much when you're naming it's the male roles. Of course, you have the dual roles, Matt Damon and DiCaprio is sort of the opposites. But yeah, Martin Sheen, by the way, that's who it is, Martin Sheen.
Oh, okay.
Martin Sheen's like the captain guy, and then his two like subordinates that are always talking shit are Marky Mark and Alec Baldwin. But lots of names you can name. But anyway, great movie. I'm not trying to in any way come down. I like it. It's like one of my favorite movies. It's in like my top 100. I own the Blu-ray. Love it very much. I'm just saying it is true that if you're thinking about just getting sucked into a story, sometimes you can be distracted by big name actors. You just can't help it because you're just so familiar with them and their personalities and things that it comes through.
Yeah. I feel like I wind up going on a tangent every time we talk about something that's a remake. But like, who is the Goodnight Mommy remake for?
That's what I mean.
because no one's going to know. I mean, someone who's not going to watch subtitles is not going to know that movie existed in Austria, you know?
Right. So, I mean, I guess it's enough that people think it's a strong enough story that it deserves to be seen by a wider audience. And like you said, there's a certain audience that just would not hear of or even care about seeing a movie with German, German dialogue and subtitles. But on the other hand, it's like, while we're at it, we'll also tone down some of the more disturbing aspects of it too. It's like, well, why do that? Like, at least give them the full experience. Because
Yeah.
one of the major differences is like, even though it's only been a couple months since I saw the remake, I can't remember exactly what they do about her mouth, but they do not super glue her mouth. I know that. Like, one of the things is, and it is actually a good point too, because again, as we said, we're dealing with sort of mental illness on both sides. Plus, we're talking about a 10-year-old who does not think things through.
Yeah.
So I think that's not too outlandish to think that they might super glue the lips and then not realize, oh, now she can't eat or do anything. So you have that very uncomfortable scene with him having to like try to cut it open and that's not in their remake at all.
Oh man. But I mean, why not just completely like just do a new script based off the novel that it's based on, So
I mean, it is a pretty new script. All the scenes are different.
I feel it's different to be different, different for different sake.
Yeah, I mean, they're different, but they still get to the same place. Was it a novel?
I thought I saw that in the trivia. It's an older one.
Oh, I mean, it's possible. It's not mentioned where I'm reading it. It just says that, the script was written by the directors, Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala.
Let's see. But yeah, keep an eye on them. They're definitely going to be going places.
Yeah. It's interesting that its original German title is I See, I See.
I see.
Which
Foghorn Leghorn.
Understand, yeah. Just doesn't translate as well, so I can understand changing that. That's fine. Plus, it ties in with the opening with the lullaby.
Well, no, I don't know where I saw that. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, I can't find anything that says that.
But I mean, anyway, it's a pretty simple story. Why not just, whatever. I really hate that because it makes people, it devalues the original, It's like, oh, Old Boy, I saw that. Josh Brolin, right? Yeah, he kills it.
Yeah. That's true. Josh Brolin's fine, but yeah, why is it needed?
I haven't seen it, but
I haven't seen it in a long time. But I was thinking about it since Old Boy's the last one we did, so it did make me think I should watch the remake again if I can find it.
I'll give it a
Although
watch.
I still remember the key differences. Like I said, I did enjoy that extra thing about the fake television show because it helps throw you off a little bit. But I can't even remember who the bad guy or I can't even remember who it is who's like the
It's
antagonist.
like Topher Grace or somebody, I'm sure.
They're not nearly. That's one thing I remember. They are not nearly as good as the Korean actor. I remember that much.
Oh no, that movie wouldn't be what it is without him.
Yeah, he's really good. But having looked it up a little while ago, like all I could remember is Josh Brolin, but it has like more people than you might expect. I think Elizabeth Olsen's in it.
Okay.
Because it's 2013 is the other thing. You have to remember sort of the timing of it. So yeah, I'd like to see it again. It's Spike Lee though. Ago. I'm not a Spike Lee fan at all. I really don't like most of his movies.
That's one of the reasons I haven't seen that movie. Because I don't like basically the way he acts about things.
I don't like him as a person at all. I find him super annoying. But this at least proves he can do a pretty competent movie. Although again, it's kind of unnecessary and it's a remake. Because I remember being interested in BlacKkKlansman, and BlacKkKlansman was not bad. It's just kind of dull.
And that may have been the one that he crowdfunded. There was one that he crowdfunded after he had talked shit about directors doing that for years. He's like, I'll just do what I've been bitching about.
Speaking of remakes, there's going to be a remake of that movie that Orc likes. I think there's going to be a remake of White Men Can't Jump.
I saw that. It's got Jack Harlow in it, the rapper.
Yeah. I mean, why do that? Has that movie aged that poorly? I don't think so. I mean, again, it's an early 90s movie, but I mean, does it feel like a million years ago? Does it feel like such a period piece that we need to like inject new life into it? I mean, it's about guys playing basketball.
I mean, again, who is that for? You know, I know kids today have probably heard that term. They probably don't even know it's based on a movie. You know, but who is that for? I mean,
if you like basketball, wouldn't you be willing to watch it? You know, people like basketball then, people like basketball now. If you want to watch a basketball movie, there, like, are you going to say 1992? I don't know. Basketball was so different then. The only thing I found, like, when Orc finally got me to watch that movie, because I didn't care about it, because I'm not a basketball fan. The thing that surprised me was the Jeopardy subplot.
I love it. Yeah.
It's so weird. Like, I don't dislike it by any stretch of the imagination. I just never heard about it. And I was just like, what is this? Rosie Perez is doing Jeopardy? I never would have guessed in a million years that would have been part of the plot about these, you know, basketball hustler guys.
I'll have go fuck yourself for 1,000, please, Alex. But yeah.
But I think we mentioned it before, speaking of Spike Lee. Who directed White Men Can't Jump?
I'm not sure.
Right. But Spike Lee did direct Rosie Perez because she's in Do the Right Thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember like during the you know, the whole thing when a lot of stuff was coming out with Me Too, like she wasn't necessarily saying that Spike Lee had done anything criminal, but she said basically he really pressured her into the nude scene and that. And then she was really upset and uncomfortable, and she was like crying between takes. And they were like, no, we really got to do this. And like years later, she was like, you know, if I was a bit older and stuff, I would have just said no. But I was young and felt like I had to do it and type thing. So, I mean, that's too bad.
It's stuff like that, I think, is why they don't do a lot of nudity in movies anymore. Because they don't want to be accused of something like that further down the line.
You know? Have them say, say like, I regret it and I wouldn't have done it if I'd known, blah, blah, blah.
Which, I mean, couldn't any person who's been nude in a you know, mainstream movie come out and say that now? You know, I mean, who, you know, prove me wrong.
They could, but I mean, I guess in Rosie Perez's case, I mean, there wasn't really anything to gain from it, I suppose, except she was just trying to share her. I mean, she was explicit. She was trying to share her experience. She wasn't trying to necessarily throw everybody under the bus. Like, she wasn't trying to say, like, Spike Lee or the devil. As far as I know, I think she was just saying, I think she was just trying to say, like, it's good now. We've created an atmosphere where people won't necessarily feel pressured to do that. I think she was more, you know, blaming. I mean, I'm not going to take Spike Lee and people out of it entirely, but I think she was sort of talking about it was like more of a sign of the times, you know, like as a young actress, you really would have felt that pressure. I think she was just sort of saying, like, it's good now that if an actress isn't comfortable with nudity, maybe they don't necessarily feel as pressured to do it. I think, like, I really don't think she was trying to be vindictive and go after the people, but maybe there's something I missed or something. I don't know. I'd have to read it again.
Well, you heard that the original, like, Romeo and Juliet, I think that's what it was. Yeah, the actress was like underage, and they're suing whatever studio that was, like movie from like the 60s or something. They're suing that studio for like $30 million or something.
It had nudity in it?
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but
I've never heard of a Romeo and Juliet that had a nude scene.
I've heard people that saw it like in school. And they're like, oh, yeah, we got to see, you know, tits in middle school or whatever.
Because I did see nudity. This is funny, too, because I literally just watched Opera, the Dario Argento movie, which focuses on the opera based on Macbeth. And what's funny was when I was in high school, we watched a production of Macbeth, and it had nudity because it was put on by Playboy. It was the Playboy production of Macbeth. That's right. And I watched that in high school, but I mean, there's nobody underage in it. But I mean, Lady Macbeth like runs around like bottomless quite a bit in it when she starts going crazy. It's pretty funny. And like, I remember like our English teacher, who I'm 99.9% sure is gay, like even saying like she had a nice butt. I'm just gonna said you just might notice that she has a nice butt or something like that. It's like nowadays, oh, so inappropriate.
Yeah,
whatever. But yeah, I think Patrick Stewart was in it.
That's right. You told me about that. Romeo and Juliet from '68.
Okay, I had no. I've heard of the '68 version.
Olivia Hussey is Juliet.
Oh, I love Olivia Hussey.
I should watch this movie.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've definitely heard of that version. It's a pretty well-known version. Had no idea there was nudity in it. It's interesting.
Yeah, I love opera too. I know, or Cole's not a big fan of it anymore, but
no, I mean, I don't want to be misunderstood. I just remember liking it a lot more. I hadn't seen it in a long time. Seeing it, I only had two main issues with it. Really, one was I know what they're trying to do with the soundtrack. I just don't think it works. Like once the murders start and some like 80s metal plays, like I've just never believed in that. I know they really want to make 80s metal because of its, because it rocks so hard and because it talks about demons and hell and stuff. It's not scary to me. It does not create a scary atmosphere. And I also had forgotten like how dumb the main actress is in it, like her character. Like, why does she do the things she does? Why doesn't she tell the cops after the first time she's getting people killed because she's dumb? And that kind of bothered me. Apart from that, I still really like the movie. It's probably Argento's last great movie. We said before, that stretch from like 1970 to 80, that movie in 87, like all great movies pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
and then nothing after that.
Then he never made any movies ever again. We all know it's a fact. But no, I'd say, I didn't want to give the wrong idea. I still actually like the movie quite a bit. It was just either I'd forgotten it or something that hadn't bothered me as much and then bothers me more now is all I meant. I still am a fan of the movie for sure. I still like it and put it up there. I mean, my Argento, I don't know exactly how I'd rank it. Suspiria is probably at the top, which is kind of predictable, but there. I really love The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. His first giallo. I think that's the best giallo I've seen is The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. I think it's the perfect balance because giallo started out as like mysteries and then they just got more and more violent and nonsensical. Like I own Tenebrae. I like Tenebrae, but Tenebrae makes no fucking sense, man. And its body count is kind of ridiculous. I get it. It was 82 slashers were becoming a big thing. And I think they had to like meet that. So in a way I can respect Tenebrae because for the crazy body count, but no, I've always felt like Bird with Crystal Plumage was sort of the perfect balance. It had the strong violence, slasher violence, but it had a pretty decent story. Not like amazing. And I'm talking about Agatha Christie or something, but a good story. Mm-hmm. So that's my favorite. So then after that, it sort of goes over the map. But opera's still up there. I like opera. The one I've always been disappointed in is Phenomena or whatever.
Yeah.
Because on paper, it sounds like something I should love, but then actually watching the movie, not so much. But,
I agree.
But yeah, so it's funny. You make me think about Macbeth.
Make it so.
Well, I'm trying to think of different scenes. Like, because again, having my memories all mixed up, especially having just somewhat recently seen the remake. Because this movie does not explicitly say how Lucas died. They just point out there's an accident. When I was watching it the first time, this time, there's a shot early in the movie where it shows them like going together into a cave. I was thinking, oh, they're going to flash back to that later that like, something happened to him in this cave. Like he fell or, got lost or something. But no. So that kind of disappointed me in a way because my memories were mixed up. I was like, oh yeah, they're going to flash. Like when they finally have the reveal that, he's dead and he died, they're going to flash back that like in this cave, something happened. But no. In the remake, it's like he shot his brother. I mean, that certainly wouldn't work for an Austrian film.
Now that you mention it, maybe like the pre-credits scene, like when he's going into the cave, they're both going into the cave. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they could hint something happened, but they don't specifically say. But I was expecting that. Like, I remember getting around to the end. I was like, okay, now when she's going to reveal that Lucas has died, they're going to do a flashback and show that he lost him in the cave. And they don't at all. It's just there was an accident at some time in the past, and we don't know what it was. But yeah, I did think that was a little too on the nose, really, for an American remake. Oh, he had a gun and he shot him. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I talk all the time about, the problems and gun violence and stuff. But even I think that's a little bit much for your American remake. It's like they had a gun out in the barn. He blew his brother's head off. Like, shit.
He's got type 2 diabetes and he has a gun. Stupid.
Yeah, so that's a change. That's a change I really didn't like. That they had to say explicitly that like the accident was like he shot his brother. It's like that's what you come up with.
I mean, I kind of like that it's open ended though, because it's not really that important to the plot.
You mean how he died?
Yeah.
No, how he died isn't important. It's just that he is dead. That's
Right.
the main thing. And I guess that's why in the original they don't even make a point of saying how. Just there was an accident, and obviously Elias has he's internalizing all this guilt. He feels like he's responsible, although we have no idea why. You don't. They take all that out in the remake because it's like he literally shot him. So yes, of course he's going to have guilt, accident or not. You are the one who pulled the trigger and shot your twin brother. So yeah, a little really on the nose with the manifestation of guilt there too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen New York Ripper. It's an interesting sort of balance of like exploitative trash, but good stuff in there too. So I mean, I like it.
I like it.
It's another one of those movies where like it would be easy to just like call it complete trash and be done with it, but I think that's missing the point in judging it. As we said many times, I don't think you should always judge movies by the same standards. Like, am I going to judge New York Ripper the way I judged Lord of the Rings? No. Yeah. So it's a good enough movie. I don't love it, but it's good. It's a good example of that era when you had that sort of push and pull between giallos giving way to outright slashers. Like, what is New York Ripper? It's like somewhere in between there, kind of.
Yeah, it is somewhere in between. Yeah.
So that alone makes it appealing to me. It makes it interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good seeing Opera again because it had been a very, very long time. But I mean, so the movie, a lot of it has to do with like being in denial and having trouble with guilt. And as we said, like, what terrible timing for the mother to do this. But we can see it as part of like her own problems. The whole thing is like, not only is the boy not acting right, he's just a kid and you lost, but like here's an adult, but she can't handle it either. She's not doing this in the right way either. Not processing it. Although it is true, like she was trying for a while. Like there was a time where before this that we didn't see where she was acknowledging as if Lucas was alive, right? Like she did play along for a bit because she felt like, okay, he'll come out of this on his own.
Yeah.
I will play along, and it just didn't get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Suzanne West. West, I don't know how you say it. Who is an Austrian actress. She's younger than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, yeah. Yeah, she only would have been in her early 30s for that movie. I would have thought she was probably a few years older than that, actually. But can't find much information on her. I've not seen her other movies, but
yeah,
she almost has like a Kate Winslet look in some ways.
Yeah, it's not like a bombshell type look. It totally fits being like a news anchor or whatever she does.
Yeah, like a moderately pretty
talk show host
to put on TV.
Yeah.
Type thing. And I guess they do make a subtle point there about like how important looks are in that world. She's getting older. Maybe she feels like she needs to have work done to keep her job. And that's definitely a thing. I mean, I think in the past year, Lisa Laflamme, longtime journalist in Canada, like she basically got fired more or less because of her gray hair from CBC. So that's been a big thing in a while.
Wow.
It's like, in that, like, we've come so far, but like when it comes to like journalism, especially if it's going to be on TV, men are allowed to age however they want. But once women start to age, you got to get them out of there and get, fresh new faces in, so that there's still quite a bit of a sexism in
Make
there.
your tits bigger. Make your fucking big titties.
I remember there used to be a whole like rabbit hole on YouTube. So maybe it's even more important in Europe, I think. Because you ever done that rabbit hole on YouTube where you've seen like various European countries like Hungary and stuff, and it's just their news and their anchors look like goddamn like bombshell models. They look like that. I don't mean good. I mean supermodel good level looks. And they're just, like anchoring the normal news. Like I remember seeing a whole bunch of videos a few years ago on YouTube of various non-English speaking European news networks, and that's who they're I'm not in any way saying that women weren't qualified or anything like that. I'm just saying you do really see a pattern because they're not. Some of these people were like stunningly beautiful. I don't just like distractingly so. I also remember sometime in the early 2000s. Remember there was literally a channel called Naked News where they got attractive women to like strip while they gave the news. I don't know how long that lasted, but I remember that being reported
I've
on.
actually watched that fairly recently. I kind of
So how
stumbled
long did
upon
that
it.
last? They're still around, or is that from
I don't
older
know.
stuff?
I don't know. It must have
But
been older, but yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I remember that too. I don't remember what I saw it on, but I remember actually watching it like on the
Probably
internet or
Playboy
something.
Channel or something, I would imagine.
Yeah, because the whole point is, they talk and they're completely professional, and
Yeah.
they strip. It's like, well, that's interesting. Yeah, that's how I want to get my news.
There was a pile up on the 405 today.
Yeah, I know. I want to be all turned on while I
It's
hear
like in
about
my-
like them carpet bombing in countries.
We all have plastic in our bodies. And she takes her panties off.
Pretty crazy. So, I mean, that's not a big part of this movie, but it does make you think. It is a little touch on that, I suppose. Like,
Yeah.
the pressure that women in the media feel to stay pretty, things like that.
I guess you may be right. Like maybe even more pressure than they would be.
I mean, it seems that way based on those things, because I'm just like, my God, like these aren't just attractive women. Because I mean, we're used to saying, you see it over here too. Like, I mean, I don't think there's any such thing as like a non fairly attractive like blonde one on Fox. Like that's their thing, more or less. But I mean, yeah, some of these things I've seen on YouTube of these various other countries, it's just like they could have been like supermodels, but instead they're.
Mm-hmm. We already have enough of those. We gotta let these ugly girls have a shot.
Well, good. Maybe let the super attractive women know that they can do more. They can go into different fields. Like, don't let that be the thing that defines you, I guess.
It's not only about your looks, except that it is.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It's always different messages.
Yeah.
On one side, it's like, yeah, looks shouldn't matter. It's what's inside, and then like everything like seems to refute that though.
Yeah.
But I mean, that'll be a long time coming in all parts of society. That sort of reckoning. So as I said, like you even see it in the news world here. Because I mean, God, I've seen some completely ugly, terrible looking men in the movies. We got a guy in our like local news called Paul Withers. I never really until I saw him, I didn't understand what like the term weak chin meant. But he's like he looks like some sort of like frog. And he's only older now. Because he's been around since I was a kid. So now he looks even worse. And I'm just thinking, man, if he was a woman, they'd never let him near. Just no effing way. Yeah, men get to be more distinguished as they get older, especially in the field of journalism. It's like people trust, like a guy with like gray hair or white hair, and think of like concrete. It's like that's integrity. It's like a woman getting older. Turn it off. Don't let me listen to that.
I mean, like 25 years ago, Brad Pitt was like the hottest man on earth, and he kind of still is.
He kind of still is.
The same guys. George Clooney. You can keep Harrison Ford.
For some, and I mean, not all of that is completely that. It's just different tastes. Because plenty of women just say that they like older men. My mother always told me she was surprised she married somebody so close to her in age, because when she was in her 20s, she was into guys that were like 50 and stuff like that. But I mean, everybody can be into whatever they want. But that's true. And it's like for women, the window's so small. And I know you can quote me a million times on this show and other shows, and I don't mean to sound like a sexist jerk or anything, but I'll often use that caveat when people talk about like an attractive actress. I'll be like, well, back then, or I'll talk about them being in their prime or in a decline. And I realize that's all kind of jerky language, and I do kind of feel bad about it. But
speaking of that, did you see what Madonna looks like now at the Grammys?
No.
Pull it up.
I mean, this is the problem. Madonna might have been able to age gracefully, but she felt like she couldn't. So God knows what she's done to herself.
All right. Let me share this. You'll appreciate this.
Trigger warning.
Yeah. She's got like a bunch of implants in her face.
She doesn't have a neck anymore.
No. Let's see.
See, man, I get again. This comes from like ever since the early '80s, she was literally a sex symbol. So it's like, how do sex symbols age? Like,
Not gracefully, usually.
because they can't let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but yeah, I mean, she probably should have just left well enough alone, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still that pressure. I'm like, why is there still that pressure? Like, who are you trying to be sexy for now? I mean, you're like 60.
But you can't even 60 something, probably. You
Yeah.
can't even tell this was that same person, though.
Yeah, we've seen that transformation with a lot of celebrities as they age, especially when, as I said, it's unfortunate. They feel that pressure and then they go into various surgeries that usually backfire horribly, and here we are. But I get it, we're all complicit up here rating people's looks and, firing people for getting older and things like that.
Well, I'm just saying Madonna was one of the hottest women around. I mean, I didn't really think so, but people did.
Yeah, people did. But I mean, nothing lasts forever.
But you're gonna get old. I mean, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's not
you're gonna lose.
That's what I mean. It's not a crime. It's not something you did wrong. It's just time moving on. But I just feel like somebody like Madonna, she's entering her 40s or whatever. Back then, you can almost picture her like panicking, thinking like, I have to stay beautiful and all this stuff, or people won't like me anymore. I'm like, that's just sad when I think of somebody as successful as her, one of the biggest stars in the world, to have that level of, to be insecure because it's like, well, people are going to notice that I'm aging. Yeah, they are. But I don't know. You shouldn't let that ruin your life going forward, and you should be proud of what you've accomplished. I don't know.
As I looked up Ray of Light, that was like in the late '90s, an album that came out, or maybe a song off the album.
I know the song.
I just remember I was at a.
She's very attractive in that.
I was like exactly. She was like 30 something in that. So
yeah.
She was older and had a kid and stuff, so it was. But then that was, how many years ago was that? 20 something for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Ray of Light was, I think, 98. Maybe 99.
But, yeah.
But yeah, that's not a bad song for, what it is. I'm never into her kind of pop, but it's not a bad song. And it's an interesting video because it's shot like with weird, like sped up camera effects.
Yeah.
Don't even know if you remember it.
Yeah, I never really liked the song or Madonna in general, but
no,
I was on this.
That was never my thing. But I mean, if you're our age, Madonna dominates. She's one of the stars. You got Michael Jackson and Prince, Madonna. Oh, yeah. They're all up there. None of them were ones I listened to or cared that much about, but I knew they were huge stars. They were huge. I mean,
Michael Jackson would probably be one that I actually really did like. Elvis, I like.
Elvis is a bit different because he was already dead.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He was like a legend in a way because he was already dead. But yeah, I just
remember. Never a big Prince fan.
No, Prince. Same thing. Like Prince is one of those people, like personally, where I totally understand why people like him, and I totally see the talent. Yeah. It's just not really my type of thing. He was a brilliant guitarist. My God, could he play? But it just was never gonna be my thing.
Was like,
my favorite Prince. My favorite.
No. He's banging all those dancers behind him.
Yeah. Prince had a good time. What did he die of?
A fentanyl overdose.
Yeah.
He was a Christian Scientist or some sort of religion.
He was a very strange religion.
They couldn't even take, they're not supposed to take like Tylenol. But
yeah. That's what it was saying.
It was a bootleg Percocet or Vicodin or something that he thought was real, but it was not. It was made with fentanyl, and there were way too much in there.
Because there was a ton of like conspiracy stuff that jumped up when he died. Because some people were like, he because of his, he was straight edge. He wasn't into drugs or alcohol or anything. What's going on here? This doesn't smell right.
Yeah, because he was performing still. So I mean. He probably was just sore, from the performance, and I'll take this pain pill. Hell, that's what they're made for, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh, see, Steven beat me to it. That's my favorite Prince song. It's "Manic Monday," which was a hit for the Bangles. He was dating one of the ones in the Bangles. He wrote it for her as like a gift. That's my favorite Prince song. It's always been my favorite Prince song, is Manic
That's
Monday.
probably one of 2 Bengal songs I can name.
Eternal Flame?
Walk Like an Egyptian's them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one. It's
And
easy to
Manic
mix the
Monday,
Bangles up with the Go-Go's because they were out at the same time and had very similar sort of sounds, except the Bangles were a bit more ballady because that's what I remember. As I remember Eternal Flame, which is a very strong ballad. Very difficult. Like you can't just be a decent singer to pull that off. You have to be a very good singer. Sing that. But yeah, Prince wrote for a few other people too.
I didn't know that either. That Prince was he a writer before he was like a solo artist?
No, I think it's just that he was really prolific. And like I said, when it came to the Bangles situation, it was just she was his girlfriend at the time, so he like did it as like a gift. It was a different thing than like say the Bee Gees, because we talked about this before. The Bee Gees in the early '80s, there was such a backlash against disco, and they were so associated with disco because of their last couple albums being part of it, even though they didn't start out in disco, that they just decided to step back, not really record or to tour, and but they were still who they were. They were songwriters, so they wrote songs for other people, and some people got some big hits off of it. The biggest example is probably "Islands in the Stream," which was that big one between Kenny Rogers and is it Kenny Rogers? Yeah, it's Kenny Rogers and
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton, yeah. But anyway, they wrote that.
That's a good song.
Since I think we've been on this track before, and I always bring it up, but the one that I've always found interesting because it's weird is like Neil Diamond also wrote a few songs that he didn't record, and one of them was was one of the biggest hits for the Monkees. It was "Daydream Believer," and it's funny because I said like years ago back in the '90s when A&E used to actually have content that didn't suck. They had one of those like special things where like it was kind of like a storyteller situation. They had Neil Diamond in the studio and he was going to play some songs. He was going to talk, but also at least maybe only once, but maybe more than once, you could call in. If you got through, you could actually request something. Somebody requested "Daydream Believer," so they dutifully did perform it, even though it's not a song he had experience performing, as far as I know. And it really showed like, yeah, it's the Monkees. Okay. It's the Monkees song. And it really showed like Neil Diamond was a good songwriter, but also the stuff he wrote for himself. He's remembered as a really good singer. I'm not saying he's not, but he has a very limited vocal range, and he cannot sing "Daydream Believer." He mostly sang his way through the whole thing. He's just like, "To a daydream believer and your homecoming queen." It's like, you're not singing, dude. You're talking, but that he must have understood that, and maybe that's why he passed it to the Monkees. I don't know. But I always think about that.
I couldn't tell you anything Neil Diamond's ever done.
No?
Just not my
come on. Well, I mean, "Sweet Caroline," of course.
Okay, yeah, I do know that.
I hate how like sports stadiums have ruined that song.
They've ruined a lot of songs,
like a lot of people. But I'm so sick of seeing like some like game in Boston or whatever where they start playing it and they like they'll go "Tear Up Sleep," and it's our wrong song. Oh, where they'll do what the fuck? Hands reaching out. Oh yeah. So it's like "Sweet Caroline," and then they'll stop the tape so that the crowd goes bop bop. I'm like, I want to kill everybody that does that. I agree. Don't sing musical parts. Just let the horns go ba ba ba. Like I don't like. It's funny. I feel like maybe a hypocrite because I'm a singer and I often have to sing along to songs even if I don't like them. I just have that. That's a part of me. I usually just have to do it. It's a reflex. But I don't sing the musical parts. I don't sing the parts performed by an instrument. So I think that bop bop ba is obnoxious as hell. So I almost hate the song now, which is too bad because it's a good song, "Sweet Caroline." But yeah, "Sweet Caroline," "Coming to America,"
"We Will Rock You,"
Queen.
That's always a big one at sporting events.
I don't feel like that's too ruined, though. I mean, that's actually almost tailor-made for sports in a way.
The Journey song, which one is it?
Probably the big one. "Don't Stop Believing."
Yeah, that's it.
"Don't Stop Believing" might be the most overplayed song ever. It's a good song.
People will sing that entire fucking song at sports. Like if your team's winning or whatever.
The one that surprised me is if you watch Colorado Avalanche games, for some reason that arena in Denver has adopted the Blink-182 song All the Small Things. They play it every game, and the audience sings along to it. There's always a part somewhere in the second period where they play it, and people... I'm like, that's so weird. And what does that have to do with Colorado? Like, none of it makes sense. It has nothing to do with hockey, nothing to do with Colorado. I'm not saying you have to play songs that are about hockey. I mean, you just play whatever. That's how they do that shit. But still, like, it's like some sort of tradition there. It's like, who are these people at Denver, Colorado, going to see an NHL game, and they're singing all the words to All the Small Things, which isn't even their biggest hit. Like, it's one of their known songs, but it's not even like the third song I might name if I was going to name Blink-182 songs. So that's the one that really is bizarre to me. There's probably other examples I'm not thinking of, but that's the one. Anytime they're in Colorado at a home game, they play that song, and the crowd gets right into it.
Yeah, they know what's up. They just start singing immediately.
I mean, part of that is just getting old, right? Because we can remember being that song 20 years ago when we were the target audience, and now it's like it's all middle-aged people like us remembering it and singing.
Yeah.
It's like so speaking about people getting older and aging, it's the same thing sort of with a band too. Like Blink-182, I'm sure they might still perform, but I mean, so much of music is so youth-based. Like, it's just not going to age. You don't want to hear rappers and punk rockers and metal people. Certain music, sure, it works. Some people, it's so built into them, the older they get, the better that works. Like, case in point for Canada is definitely like Gordon Lightfoot, who sounded like an old man back in the 70s. The older he got, the more he fit his music. Yeah. Just an old guy with an acoustic guitar doing sort of a folky thing. That's great. But yeah, if you do something like punk and metal and rap, they're all about youthful exuberance and youth. So when you get into your 50s doing it, it's, I don't know. I don't ever want to tell bands they have to retire, but I do think you have to be sensitive to the kind of music you do. And when your music is so wrapped up in like youth and you're just not there anymore, I don't know if it's really worth doing.
What about like the Rolling Stones? Like, they still perform.
The Rolling Stones are almost an exception because they've taken that and just smashed it to pieces because they were too old like 30 years ago and they still didn't stop. So I can't say anything anymore. Like 30 years ago, they were too fucking old and they were just like, we don't care. We'll rock until we're like 95, apparently. I mean, they killed Charlie Watts. I don't care what anyone says. Charlie Watts died because of that. Because of all of them, Charlie Watts looked the oldest. Like, when you saw him perform, he looked 10 years older than the rest of them anyway. And secondly, he was the drummer, which is the most physical thing you can do. I feel like all their touring murdered poor Charlie Watts. It's like, don't make this man do this anymore. He's old and frail. Drumming is very physical. What are you doing to this guy? And then he died. Because everyone's like, I can't believe like Keith Richards is still alive. All the drugs and shit he did. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not saying it's not physical touring. Of course it is. But it's not like playing the drums.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've gone so far past the rule that like it doesn't even apply anymore. It's almost like they're a weird exception. It's like, well, I guess they're just immortals that'll play until they turn into skeletons.
That's true. Because I remember they were old as hell and they had an album come out that did really well, like probably in the 90s, late 90s maybe.
I remember in the late 90s, you had an album came out that did well in 97, and the first single off it was called Anybody Seen My Baby? And I remember that video got hard rotation. And there was a lot of controversy because it basically had the same tune as the song Constant Craving. Is that Katie Lang, I want to say, one of those female artists? Anyway, they basically have the same tune. But they're the Rolling Stones, so they can just get away with it.
So they ripped off a Katie Lang song?
Yeah, I'm just going to double check that is Katie Lang. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, yeah, a song from 1992 by Katie Lang.
No, our song's different. See,
I guess that's well known here because she is Canadian, so maybe it was a little more known here. Like, I don't know how. Yeah. Constant Craving was a big hit, and I know it charted in the States, but again, I don't know how well Americans might remember it because she was a Canadian artist.
Just wasn't into that type of music, really.
I wasn't either. It just, again, Canadian content, it would show up a lot in rotation on the radio and things like that. So, I mean, she was fine. Actually, I like a lot of the female solo artists that Canada produced in the 90s. She wouldn't be like high on that, but you have people like Alanis Morissette, Sarah McLachlan. my personal favorite, M. Griner, who never got that level of fame, but she was awesome. I got her poster right there signed.
Oh,
She's
nice.
speaking of beautiful. I think I might have mentioned this before. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever like met in person. And when I met her, she was in her early 40s and like 6 months pregnant, and she was still she's still like the most attractive person I've ever actually spoken to in my life. But in the 90s, she toured with David Bowie. She was David Bowie's touring keyboardist in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Well, not the whole 90s, but like for about 3 or 4 years in the 90s. So she played some pretty massive gigs back in the day. But anyway, she wouldn't be as well known. But yeah, Canada was pretty well known for a while, pumping out female solo artists. Now, some of them were legit like that, and some of them were people who were just voice boxes, like Celine Dion, who was a great singer, but she was no songwriter.
Was Lisa Loeb, or is Lisa Loeb Canadian?
No, not one of ours.
That was a lot during the 90s.
Yeah. On the country side of it, you had Shania Twain, who was megastar.
Right.
Because really, that was the thing. Like, I would talk endlessly about all the 90s bands that I loved growing up. They're still my favorite bands. Most Americans didn't hear anything about them. But what did break through were quite a few Canadian female solo artists. Shania Twain was one. Alanis Morissette was one. Eventually, Avril Lavigne was one. A little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
So we were pretty good at producing that for the world stage. Sarah McLachlan, like I said, pretty big deal. She did the whole Lilith Fair thing in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The focus on female artists. Well, I mean, it was a good thing too, because these were female artists who were also songwriters. They weren't just performers. They were writing their own songs. So Canada had a lot of them that did not. Sarah Harmer. I loved Sarah Harmer. I know she didn't ever make a dent in the U.S. She was not like a big star here, but I really liked her. I saw her a few times. Some really nice songs in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, we produced a lot of those. And yet still we get blamed for shit like Nickelback or Justin Bieber. Yeah, you got to take the good with the bad. You got to take the bad with the good, I guess.
Ryan Reynolds, Michael J. Fox. Come on. There's some good ones in there. Eugene Levy.
Well, that seems to be what we're the best at is comedians.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Eugene Levy.
Was Ryan Gosling Canadian?
Yep, both Ryans. Ryan Gosling's also Canadian. It's like Eugene Levy and Mike Myers and Jim Carrey.
Oh yeah,
the one that's never gets associated with the others and people forget is Canadian is Howie Mandel. He's also Canadian.
Oh, okay.
But what else we got? John Candy, of course, fucking legend. But a lot of those guys, they were in the same sphere, like that SEC TV sphere, where you'd have Eugene Levy and John Candy as part of it, and Bruce McCullough. Bruce McCullough's later, right? He's one of the kids in the hall, isn't he? Getting my generations mixed up. But of course, the kids in the hall, I think, all count.
Of course.
Because they made their impact in movies and TV outside of Kids in the Hall. But yeah, I guess that's the one that we're most known for is producing a lot of really famous Canadian comedians. I know there's others I haven't mentioned.
Yeah, we're leaving some big ones out. But
Martin Short.
Let's just go through the cast of Saturday Night Live.
Phil Hartman.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Or Phil Hartman.
Tom Green.
Tom Green was off in his own little world, but he counts. It's another thing about how weird the early 2000s felt, like when Tom Green was like at the height of his fame, and he married Drew Barrymore.
That was an odd time, wasn't it?
Is this happening? Yeah. And he hosted Saturday Night Live, and like the whole thing was like he was gonna like marry her at the end, but then she didn't show up, which of course was all staged. But it was like, I don't know, maybe he thought it would play out funny, but on something like Saturday Night Live, it just looked weird. He's just running around saying, "Hey, where is she? What's going on, Drew?" I don't know. It didn't really work.
Foreshadowing.
I'm the star. Freddie got fingered. The world is my oyster.
Was that what did it? Freddie Got Fingered was what made him? I mean, I know he had his show on MTV, but
Well, no, that's not what made him. Freddie Got Fingered actually was the result of it, because the whole thing was he got into a certain point of fame where basically a studio said, make anything you want. And that's where Freddie Got Fingered came from. So it wasn't what made him famous, it was a result of his fame. But they're just like, here, whatever you want to do as a movie, do it. And we got that masterpiece.
that's an odd movie, man.
I mean, everything he's involved in is odd, so fair enough. I really did enjoy watching the show. I used to watch the show.
His show before it went on MTV was the best, in my opinion. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's
still just Canadian.
Yeah, when it was just the Ottawa access show, public access in Ottawa. I loved his prank phone calls and stuff, funny stuff.
Yeah.
I'll never not be upset about Phil Hartman. Stupid wife shot him.
It's Andy Dick's fault.
I mean, kind of a little bit, right? Because, like, apparently, at least according to John Lovitz, like, Andy Dick, like, she had been on, cocaine and stuff, and she had been getting away from it, and Andy Dick kind of drew her back in, is supposedly the story.
I mean, assuming that story's true, I mean, yeah, but I mean, is he to blame, really? I mean, I can't really say it's his fault.
I wouldn't say you can't say it all his fault, but I mean, I certainly understand John Lovitz's feelings because apparently he attacked him on the set of News Radio.
He got in a fight with Andy Dick like quite a few years later.
Yeah, because he never let it go. He never forgave him. He never said like, "Well, now I think it wasn't." He's always held the same position as far as I know. Like Andy Dick is at least partially to blame. Yeah, quite a few, but yeah. As far as there it is. English rock band, the Rolling Stones, used a refrain very similar to that of Constant Craving in their 1997 single "Anybody Seen My Baby." The latter gave writing credits on that song to Katie Lang and the co-writer Mink. Okay, so they eventually did give writing credits to. That's usually what kind of happens. It's so hard to fight these sorts of things of plagiarism that they eventually just do it. That's what Radiohead eventually did with Creep. They were just like, fuck, we don't even like the song. We're not going to play it anyway. So they gave the writing credits to the guys from the Hollies. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I know you've told me that before, but I don't think I've heard that original song.
It's called The Air That I Breathe. It's one of the hits by the Hollies, who nobody can really think of, but trust me, their songs. The Hollies are weird because they have a lot of hit songs, but they're all spread out over a lot of albums. Like they don't have like any like one definitive album. It's like every time they had a hit, it was on a different album. I mean, probably the big one they're known for is "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother." If you want to pin down who the Hollies were, but they're part of that British invasion thing. Very similar in some ways to the Beatles and Dave Clark 5 and that kind of thing. Very vocally. They were part of that wave that was really known for like vocal harmonies and stuff. Their first couple albums, they didn't even do their own songs. Like they have like an entire album that's just a cover of Dylan. It's just like the Hollies sing Dylan. That's what it is. Actually, I really enjoy their cover of "Blowin' in the Wind." It's awesome. I've got it. But yeah, "The Air That I Breathe." It's a pretty cool song. It has a slow build up, and that's the part that's basically kind of used in Creep. It's not exactly the same, obviously, but you can definitely see the similarities. But yeah, they eventually got the writing credits on it, and I guess some of the residuals or whatever, however it works.
That's
royalties.
Definitely the first Radiohead song I ever heard.
Yeah, same here.
And
it's funny because there's that whole crowd of people that like still associated with that song, and then you have the true Radiohead fans that are so annoyed by that because they're like, they come so far, they changed so much, they're not like that at all.
Yeah.
And there's somebody like me in the middle who doesn't care. I'm just like, I just like the songs I like I like Radiohead, and I think they got too pretentious for their own good because when they started doing the stuff after Kid A and stuff, it's like some people are annoyed about how we changed our sound. It's like we never said we were a rock band to begin with. I was like, you kind of were though, because you were like a 4-piece band with 2 guitars, bass, and drums, and you were on rock radio and stuff. And now suddenly you're saying, well, we're not a rock band at all. Like
you've got a didgeridoo, he's got a ukulele. We're gonna make some music, guys.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I didn't much like Radiohead after they changed a lot too. Although I do own the Kid A album. I actually bought it when it came out. It's fine. But they didn't need to do it again. And the second album after that, whatever it's called, is exactly the same thing. But I was gonna say about Radiohead. It had something good about Radiohead. Oh yeah, ever see Prince cover Creep? It's kind of cool.
No.
Prince would sometimes play Creep at his live shows.
That's cool.
And obviously give his own flavor to it. And bringing, once again, speaking of Canadian solo artists, this is going way back. If we're going back to that British Invasion artist, we had, of course, Joni Mitchell, very talented. And Prince, I didn't know this until recently, in like doing a dive on Prince a few years ago, looking at some of that stuff, was that Prince adored her song, A Case of You, and he used to cover that. But anytime I looked it up, he never sang the verses I wanted to sing, because there's a whole part that actually says, like, I drew a map of Canada, and she says, oh, Canada. Like, he doesn't sing that part. I was like, would have been cool to see Prince acknowledge those lyrics. But anyway, A Case of You, as you might imagine, it's very different. Like, if you know Joni Mitchell, you know, a slow, folky, acoustic guitar-driven thing. And then you have Prince taking it and making it all funky and electric. It's still good. Like, I don't think he ruins the song or anything. I'm just as disappointed that I had never find him singing that verse. But it's a good song. Good old Joni Mitchell. She was not pretty. She was not ugly, but, you know, it's enough to not be pretty to have it work against you.
I know that name, but I couldn't tell you what she looked like.
It's because she was more or less a sort of average-looking woman. In no way, I'm not going to call her ugly because she wasn't, but in no way would you ever say she's pretty. But, you know, she did Big Yellow Taxi. They paved Paradise and put up a parking lot. She did Both Sides Now. She was, speaking of guitarists, she's one of the most innovative guitarists that's ever been. Like, she basically was self-taught on the guitar and had a style that nobody else used, because it was just, I'm not a guitarist, so it's hard for me to get into specifics of it, but you can probably find out people talking about it. She had a very different way of composing and playing on the acoustic guitar. But speaking of, like, being attracted to people based on, like, you know, their based on, like, who they are more so than their looks. Like, apparently during that time in, like, Laurel Canyon and stuff in the late 60s when all that folk stuff was exploding, like, quite a few of those prominent guys and bands, like, just fell in love with her, and she was not pretty. But, you know, they were just so attracted to her amazing talent. So that's kind of cool. And these were guys, you know, that could have gotten pretty attractive women if they wanted to, because they were in successful bands. But anyway, so Joni Mitchell's maybe doesn't get talked enough about today. She's certainly an important part of Canadian music and just sort of that stuff in general. She's still alive.
Oh, yeah. I know who she is.
Her album Blue is
considered
considered one of the best albums.
She was kind of like Shelley Duvall or something.
Yeah, she has sort of like an off-putting, like, I don't want to go that far, but yeah, she not pretty. That's all I can say. I'm not trying to say. Yeah, see, I probably became aware of Prince because of Batman 89, but even as a little kid who didn't have all the crazy opinions I have now on Batman, even then I was like, why is this in a Batman movie? It just never made sense to me. Even as a kid, it didn't make sense that Prince's weird brand of, like, pop funk was in a Batman movie. I didn't get it at all, especially considering they had that really good soundtrack that they would eventually bring into the animated series because it was so good. So it's like, what kind of mixture is this? You've got the da 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 and all that cool menacing orchestral sound, and then you've got, like, Prince songs thrown into it, like Party Man. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. It was we always talk about times being a weird time. What is a weirder time than summer of '89, where for some reason Batman is a super popular movie as played by popular comedian Michael, whatever his name is, Keaton.
Oh yeah.
With Prince providing the soundtrack.
You've seen Mr. Mom, right? Okay, we got that guy as Batman.
Just one of those things that you just can't make up, right? Like, if you told somebody, like, who, I don't know, was in a coma or something, they wouldn't believe you. Be like, what? No. That's who Batman was? Yeah, that's who Batman was. And he wasn't bad. You know, he wasn't bad at all. But
just wait till you see who plays Mr. Freeze. Just wait.
Oh God. But yeah, even as a kid, that didn't make sense to me from, you know, the things that I knew about Prince, which wasn't much, but, you know, I'd seen some of his music videos, knew what his music was like. I was like, how is this fitting into Batman at all? Strange time.
it sounds stupid to say now, but I wasn't really that familiar with the Batman comics at that time.
No, I wouldn't have been.
I
I wouldn't have been
came,
at that time either. That's
like
what I said. Even
I had seen the fucking the old TV show,
the Adam
forget
West
the guy's
show,
name.
right? Which
Adam West, yeah.
it was just called. It was just
Which
called
is
Batman. That's all it was
which
called.
is, I mean, it's
The
nothing
cheap-
like anything else. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the cheesiest shit you'll ever see.
it's straight comedy.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what to expect.
I mean, that's why I'll often talk about like how I sometimes get a little annoyed because again, I don't mind Michael Keaton, but how much I think it's just because they only had that to really weigh it against. There was the super duper crazy campy Adam West Batman, and then Michael Keaton played it kind of straight, and that was enough to blow people away.
Yeah.
Even though it still comes off as a bit campy to me. I love that scene where he's like, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." So dumb. What are they doing? But
I mean,
I can still enjoy those movies. I mean, people are sick of me talking about the Burton movies. I can enjoy them. Okay, I can enjoy them. They're fine.
Compared to anything after, the Burton, whoever else directed the other movies, that run, everything now has been so dark and so serious. All the Dark Knight stuff,
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, young people now, like 20-year-olds or whatever, they're like, "Oh, that old shit was stupid," like the Tim Burton stuff, which I love. I mean, I've come to respect it. I wasn't really the biggest fan at the time, but I've really.
I have to respect it because the success of the first movie led directly to the green lighting of the animated show, which was really what defined Batman for me before I started reading the comics. And the fact that that show just holds up completely now, like it hasn't really aged badly at all. It's still so great. And of course, I feel so bad about the death of the definitive voice for so many of us, Kevin Conroy.
That's really what got me into Batman, honestly, was that show.
Yeah, same here. For sure. And as I said, that show would not have happened if not for the success of the original movie in '89. So I'll always be thankful for that. But yeah, I mean, I was very lucky because, before I was reading comics and I was just a little kid, I was about 9 when Batman came out. And I loved the show and still love it. But yeah.
Soon after that is when I really got into comics. So I did start reading a lot more Batman. But even the show, the animated series was a lot darker than the movie, at the time.
A lot of it, yeah. I mean, which is one of the reasons why the show succeeded so well, is because they were able to get Fox to back off a bit when Fox wanted to change certain things. Like, look, it's not going to work if people are shooting laser guns. We need real firearms, and they had some other things. I wish some people had gone to bat for that for the Spider-Man show, because I still remember that Spider-Man show fondly. I like it a lot. They did a lot of things, but it was so hampered by that. Spider-Man couldn't even really hit people, and everybody had I could accept Silver Sable's group or the Shield agents having their non-lethal laser weapons, but they had the NYPD shooting them, which is fucking stupid. Even in the Marvel world, where I know it's full of crazy tech and stuff, that's stupid. And it's we're gonna bring Punisher in, and of course he'll just use non-lethal weaponry and he'll just try to capture Morbius instead of killing. And I mean, they try to make a point of it, to say this is not his usual MO. He's doing things differently. He's not even dressed in black. Was that too harsh? There were the Fox people oh, that skull he's got. At least make it a blue color. Black is too harsh and dark. So you got Punisher running around in a blue uniform. Yeah. I still really like the show, but the show was really hurt by that. Because especially if you go back and watch it, because I think as a kid, maybe I fill in some of the blanks in my brain. I go back and watch him, he's fighting, here he is fighting Scorpion. Well, actually, he's just sort of dodging around while Scorpion throws shit at him. And now Scorpion has knocked something on top of himself, and Spider-Man has webbed him up. I'm I get Spider-Man does that stuff, but I mean, Spider-Man does hit people. He does punch. He does kick. And I mean, he barely does that in that show, which is a little bit annoying.
That's dumb.
I still will always like the show despite that, because it did do a lot of things well and good voice work and things like that. But I'd like to try to drag us back to this movie.
Oh, sorry. That was back when there wasn't really any good Spider-Man anything other than the comics.
And I mean, at the time, the comics were going off a cliff at the time. Yeah. The comics were imploding terribly in the 90s. Terrible time for Spider-Man. Even though I can like them because of my memories and stuff, but I acknowledge it was not good. It was bad stuff. Maximum Carnage was... Even the writers working on Maximum Carnage eventually started referring to it as Maximum Garbage because they knew it was shit. And then, of course, the Clone Saga, which Someday I'll do a super long video on when I've got all the pieces, because there's a lot of pieces. They did acknowledge that at the end of the show too. The episode, I really, really hate clones. No, I have not.
Which I don't think I have either, but I don't know which version.
I think you mean the 80s one? I assume he means the 80s one. I mean, I know about that whole different, really dark ending, if that's what you're talking about. I haven't seen it, but I know about that really dark ending where, like, you know, the thing takes over the world and everybody fucking dies. Like, I know about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You didn't know? I think they did film that. They filmed like a super dark ending.
That I want to see.
Yeah. So I guess you can if there's a director's cut. I don't know. I assume that's what he's referring to. Let me know. But
it's like the end of that show. Nice. That show, Dinosaurs.
Yeah, it ends with like an extinction event, right?
Yeah,
the extinction level event. It's like, well, it's the apocalypse.
It's been
Time's up for us dinosaurs.
It's been a good one. We'll see you never.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't have known this back then because I didn't see it, but I mean, people remember who actually watched the show Alf. Alf ends with the government breaking in and taking him away. That's the ending. It's like the government finally found the alien, and now they're going to drag him off and do God knows what kind of experiments to him. Have a good night, everyone. This has been Alf.
Yeah, you know the show geared at children. You know
the wisecracking alien who talks about eating cats, but of course never does actually eat a cat and all that stuff. Yeah, the government got him.
They made at least one movie after that. An Alf movie.
Yeah,
which starts wherever he's captured.
Yeah, they made a made-for-TV movie that picks that up. Yeah, I found all that out at the same time. Yeah. Actually, my first experience with Alf was the animated version. I think I saw that before I saw, like, I didn't know it was a spin-off or whatever. And it's like a prequel too, because it's about Alf's life before when he's on his planet Melmac. I remember watching that a little bit as a young kid.
Yeah, I had a lot of Alf comics. I still have some of them.
Oh man!
And I never had Alf Pogs though. I always wanted Alf Pogs
because of the moment with Milhouse.
Oh, yeah.
It's 1994. Alf's been gone for a while. Remember Alf? He's back in Pog form.
Pog form.
I never had Pogs, but I had friends with Pogs. They were a pretty big deal. I remember being.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever actually played Pogs. People just wanted to collect them, was what it was, really. Like, nobody actually played them how we were supposed to play them. It was just people collected them. Because that was a big deal. I remember for a while, you know, when I was like grade 4 or 5, people out in the schoolyard comparing Pogs, trading Pogs. I never got into it, but still have plenty of them.
I never got into it, but I mean, I had some just because I think I got them for free, you know, with something else.
That's true, too. You could get them with a lot of things.
I mean, it's just cardboard,
or whatever. There's at least like one heavy kind, right? Like they were all slim, but wasn't there like a metal one that you had to use?
The slammer, yeah.
The slammer, there you go, yeah.
You stack them up. Somehow they get stacked up, and then you slam it, and then I think, like, depending on if you're playing for keeps, you get to keep all the Pogs that fall off or whatever. We'll have to get Orc to explain all that to us.
Sounds like some sort of 90s version of Jax. Remember Jax?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Never knew how to play that either, but I remember having the stuff for it. Some weird shit back in the day. I guess it's still the same.
Yeah. You imagine a kid these days.
Everything's on. Jax. They're all on like tablets now, whatever the games are. I don't know. Weirdness.
Shut up. I'm making a TikTok.
So another thing they don't do in the remake, and I guess it isn't really necessary because, I mean, it has a really interesting shot, is remember, part of her rule is you can't bring animals in, and then they find like a stray cat in that weird like place full of bones. Like, it was like they found some sort of old crypt. I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've never walked around on bones and skulls when I was a kid, and there's a cat in there. So they bring the cat back, and they're looking after him. And the cat just dies at some point, and it's never explained why. And they just think she had to have done it. Now we know she didn't, She didn't even know about the cat. There's a whole scene where she's trying to find what they're hiding, and she doesn't find the cat. We don't know why the cat died. And then there is a really great shot, and it's kind of sad, is we have the two twins on either side and the dead cat in the middle. Remember that shot?
Yeah.
It's a great shot. It's a little thing about, I don't know, growing up or loss of innocence, I suppose. But it's just like, what was the purpose? And then they kept the cat's body and put it in like an aquarium full of water. Like, there is some stuff that is so weird. I really don't understand it.
Now, wasn't it full of some sort of flammable liquid? Because when they light the house on fire, like that's when it really catches. When it
Yeah, it must
that
have been.
aquarium up.
Well, it must have been formaldehyde, right? Like you do put dead
Okay.
things. You can preserve stuff, dead things in formaldehyde. You'll see that in like labs and things like that. I don't know why they would have it. Of course, they also keep hissing cockroaches for some goddamn reason. Because so like even at the very end when all bursts in fire, you see the cat's body is still in there. So even after she catches them, and they're doing the thing with the water and the cat, and she yells at them and says, "Clean this up." Like she never checks because he never does clean it up because the cat's body is still there. It's really weird.
Right.
So I can sort of understand leaving that out of the remake because I didn't even understand it. I was like, what the fuck? Why do they have formaldehyde? Why do they have these cockroaches? Why did they keep the cat's body? And why did they keep the cat's body after she found it? And why didn't she follow up on this to make sure there was not a dead cat in her house? Like, I get it. It's all falling apart. She's having mental issues too and stuff. But that's one part I do understand why it's not in the remake because I just found it all bizarre and nonsensical.
See, we never find out if she did kill the cat. I mean, we just kind of assume that she didn't, but
I assume that she didn't.
I think she may have because when she sees the cat in the fish tank, right?
She doesn't seem surprised.
She goes and gets the cockroaches. Like she knows what they're, the message they're trying to send. Like she didn't even know the cat existed. I mean, technically, right? I mean, if we're supposed to think she did not kill the cat, she didn't. Like, where the hell does this cat come from?
Yeah.
She didn't even.
I guess there's enough doubt there. I don't want to believe that about her. I mean, I know she's gotten kind of nuts and she's like smacked him around and threatened him a bit. But I don't want to believe she'd kill a cat just because she found one.
See, I went back and rewatched that whole scene after I watched the movie earlier because I missed it. I was like, I knew the cat died. I was like, did they kill the cat?
You just find it dead. Like, and we don't get to see anything.
And, it turns out, no, they actually really love that cat a lot. So
no, they didn't kill the cat. No, they brought it in against her wishes, or he brought it in, whatever. Well,
I didn't know. Maybe one of the brother, the dead brother, maybe influenced the other one to kill the cat or something. I couldn't remember that part of the movie.
No, he just finds it dead, and then Lucas. The manifestation of Lucas helps convince him. It's like she did it. She had to. Because like she's not our mother and she's crazy. So I can understand not putting it on the remake because I couldn't make sense of it at all. It is a really great shot of the two sort of flopped on the floor with the dead cat in the middle. It's kind of artsy and interesting and makes an impact, but it's very confusing.
Even the cat in the fish tank is interesting.
Although again, it seems so nonsensical. Like, why keep it? And why wouldn't she follow up on it? She found a dead cat in the fish tank and it's just like, clean it all up. And then she never follows up and they just keep it. Man, that's messed up.
She's like, man, this cat really ties this room together.
It's like, I know I said no animals, but since this one's already dead, I guess it's okay. You can't make a mess now. It's dead.
And speaking of that, this very interesting set design here. I really like the aesthetic. Really modern.
The house?
Extremely modern.
I mean, they kept that for the remake too, yeah. I mean, we've seen that in a few different horror movies with the sort of isolated, ultra-modern house. I know there's other examples that I'm blanking on, but I know it's a thing that's been things. I remember they made a whole thing about it for an early 2000 movies nobody saw called The Glass House.
Oh, yeah.
Which is about
Lily Sobieski.
Yeah, a girl who gets like her parents die in a car crash and she gets adopted by like weirdos who live in a glass house and she has to escape them. It's funny, just the other night I was talking about like weird movies, crappy movies I saw because it was an excuse to like go on dates with the girl I was dating at the time. That was another one. That was one we rented sometime in like 2002 or 2003. And that's the only time I've ever seen it. But I remember it was just like this ultra modern glass house. When they did the remake of When a Stranger Calls, it's set in a house like that. It's like a modern angular house with lots of glass. So, yeah, sort of the isolated, ultra-modern rich people house has been used a few times in horror.
Oh,
I mean, I get it. It's good to make a break away from sort of the more rustic, gothic type of things. It's like, yeah, that's been done. Let's do something different type thing. I do like the dancing scene that is in the remake. When I was watching the original, I was like, is there one? I can't remember, but there wasn't one. But they do have the thing where, like, I guess it's part of a dream. She doesn't really do it. Where it's the dream that I guess is replaced, because in the remake they have the dream of her like peeling everything off and being like a weird black-skinned alien under. In the original, it's just they dream of her getting naked and walking out of the house and then like running through the woods and her face being all weird.
That's a creepy scene.
It's good, yeah.
It works for sure.
I mean, the movie's all about building up sort of a sense of dread, and it's really good at that. And I think that's the best thing about it, is what really makes it. And at the time, it would have been a fairly original type of movie. Leaves you guessing a little bit, like what is going on with this kid, these kids, this woman. There's enough like doubt and things to, because yeah, once you know the twist and you watch it again, you can see how it all plays in and it works. But so I like it for a lot of those reasons. But yeah, I remember it was a movie you had brought up when we started the show, and I guess I definitely hadn't seen it at the time. This would have been, late 2016, early 2017, and it had been on our list. And a while, eventually I'd lost the list, and it had fallen off mine. It wasn't on my current one at all. And I'd forgotten about it until you brought it up again. I don't even think I thought about it when I watched the remake back in September. I don't even think I made the connection that, oh yeah, we'd actually talked about doing the originals before. I don't think I remembered.
It was a pretty popular movie when it first came out. Popular foreign movie.
Yeah, we had that sort of run of like European and Asian horror movies in like in the 2000s and 2010s, and I mean that'll continue. I mean they've always been around. I just mean when you would finally have them start getting a little bit of exposure. That's what I mean, because there's obviously older stuff, but we didn't hear about it. I mean the Ring. Being, the Ring is a remake of Ringu was a big one. The J horror, it was a big deal in the 2000s. And you had those, and I mean, I did see the remakes first for things like The Ring. I actually think the Ring remake is slightly better than Ringu. I probably said that before. Is that Naomi Watts?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So Naomi Watts in another remake of a foreign horror movie. She's in several because she's also in the remake of Funny Games.
Yeah.
It's like, how many English language horror remakes are you going to do, Naomi Watts? That's 3. There might be more, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, The Ring is probably one of the best of the remakes, but it was also early on when they started doing the remakes of, Asian movies.
And I mean, to be fair, this was 2002. It was also when just everything was being remade. 2000s was remake everything, especially horror. Because name like any popular horror movie at all, there's a 2000s remake of it.
I mean, it's hard to name ones that haven't been remade, like Jaws.
Thank God.
Jaws, Back to the Future have not been done yet.
I mean, I hope that they're just so iconic that they're untouchable as far as remakes go.
I think that's in Robert Zemeckis' will that movie will not be remade ever.
Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like since we've seen such an uptick in remakes in the last 20 years, it's just like eventually everything will be remade. At least when I say everything, anything that is at least somewhat well known. I mean, obviously there's going to be lots of scores of unknown crappy movies that'll just fall by the wayside, but I'm trying to think of a remake that really surprised me because I was like, why even bother with? I don't know. I think I moved past that to where nothing surprised me anymore. I
like the Suspiria remake a lot.
Yeah, it does its own thing.
Yeah.
It goes in sort of another direction, but I like it for a lot of reasons. I mean, I like the original more, but yeah, I think the Suspiria remake's very ambitious. Mostly pulls it off.
I mean, I can respect something that is trying to do something different,
Yeah.
Even if they don't pull it off, at least they were trying to do something. They weren't just ripping it off scene for scene like a lot of them do,
Yeah. No, I liked it. I wouldn't mind watching it again. It's been a while since I've
Or
seen it.
like, let me tell you one that sucks is The Uninvited, the remake of was it Sisters, Tale of Two Sisters?
Yeah, which is a Korean movie. What's funny is if you look up the Wikipedia page for Goodnight Mommy, those are down at the bottom for C also.
Oh
There's a Tale
wow.
of Two Sisters and The Uninvited are both mentioned there. I guess for having some similarities to this. I haven't seen either. I haven't seen the original or the remake of that.
Oh really?
Yes.
Oh, Tale
Yeah.
of Two Sisters is amazing.
Yeah, I've heard it's one of the better ones from that era.
Yeah,
Also 2003.
that was when I got really into Asian movies and Asian horror in particular.
Yeah, that's by the same director who did I Saw the Devil, which I did see.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's Kim Ji Woon.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
I brought this up before, and I can't find this. Like, there was a time a little more than 10 years ago when I had, with my PS3, I'd switched the DNS settings and I was getting the American version of Netflix, and it opened up a lot of doors for me. This is also when I seriously started getting into like martial arts movies, because finally I was able to see some of the, Jackie Chan's movies that had not like gotten over here and things. Like I saw Dragon Lord, that was one of them. Both Project A's. On the Jet Li side, I got to see Swordsman 2, Once Upon a Time in China. So it was things like that. But also, it had like quite a few, like just foreign stuff I was into anyway. And I found a very random, I can't find any information on it anywhere. It was a South Korean horror movie from about 2006. And it was called White, which makes it very hard to look up because white is a very bland word. And it was about a K-pop girl group who basically were not doing well because there was a lot of them and a lot of competition, and they were kind of failing. And then they were like in like the studio or wherever the hell it is, their rehearsal space, and they were going through like old tapes, and they found tape of a song called White being performed by an unknown group. And I don't know, it like they basically did a cover of it and it was a big hit, and they became really famous for it. But also there was like some weird curse to it kind of thing, like, and like some weird spirit started coming after them and picking them off, but it didn't actually kill them. It just sort of like, I don't know, maimed them. And the main one of the group, she was already in trouble because she was a bit older than the rest, and you age out of that really fast. So she went solo and like dyed her hair white, and I think called herself White, and hit, and it was like, anyway, it wasn't great or anything, but I thought it was really interesting and a different sort of thing. But I can't find info on it anywhere. But I'd like to.
Told me about that before. And
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie either, but I think I have seen it places though. I mean, seen it available places.
Because it kind of takes the whole haunted videotape thing from The Ring, but changes it to a song, which I liked, and it was sort of interesting. I don't know. It had a really good creepy vibe. I mean, honestly, compared to a lot of those movies, it doesn't go that far. It's not that dark or violent, but I just thought it was really interesting and unique at the time. But I've tried to track it down online and things like that. Can't find it anywhere. It's hard with such like a generic title as White, because a zillion things will come up for White. But I think it was like
big
2006.
as K-pop and J-pop are right now. I think it would probably do well.
Right, because that would be before they really exploded internationally. But yeah, I mean, The Tale of Two Sisters is another one that I remember hearing about, and again, sort of simply forgot about. It was one that was a priority. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to look for that, and then sort of fell by the wayside. So I mean, I'll try to rededicate myself and find it, because obviously I like that director, and you say it's pretty good, so I'd like to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, don't know if there's much else to say about Goodnight Mommy.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm thinking about some of the other scenes, but they're not really worth analysis. Like I think they've got the at this point, to the point where they tape her up and tie her up, and then the Red Cross members come. There isn't really much to say about that. I mean, they continue the thing where it's clear that they're only interacting with Elias and Lucas in the background. So by that, follow that. But there's not really much going on there. I mean, they do think it's weird that there's a kid alone. Oh, you make the weirdest chirping sounds. Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're funny. You must want the rest of the wet food. Yeah. Wednesday was a cat who meowed. She said meow. This one makes very high pitched chirping sounds. Yeah. Come on up. You can come up.
It's time for treats.
Give her your cami. Well, she eats treats, but her favorite thing and the thing she talks for is wet food. Is that what you like best? Is that what you want? Because every day she gets a can of wet food, and the thing is, she gets half at a time. So right now she's thinking it's about time to get the other half. I think is what it is. You got to wait a little longer. It's Camille. Yeah, Camille. You're a good girl, aren't you? You're a good girl.
The first time we've seen her, I think her tail was in the shot last time.
Yeah, she's a ram. You will get wet food soon, I promise. You will not starve. But yeah, she goes like, she makes very high chirping sounds. It's very cute.
But yeah, like you were saying, pretty much it's like from the 45-minute mark in the movie, you've got like another hour to go. She's tied up pretty much the whole time until the very end, So
right. And it is a somewhat shocking movie, especially if you're only familiar with the remake, like that whole thing about gluing her lips and stuff, and just sort of how cruel he sort of is to her. But again, he thinks he has to be ruthless to get her to reveal where the real mother is. You get it, but that's all toned down in the remake, which is I think a bit unfortunate because it takes away some of the impact, I would say. Although it is like she does die in the remake, though, doesn't she? She still burns down in the barn, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't actually see her burn. It's just like he gets out of the barn and he sees it burn down. She's in it. And like in this one, we see her erupt into flames, which is pretty nuts.
Another thing we didn't mention was there was a picture the kids found of someone that looked an awful lot like their mother.
Right.
With the mother, and they were dressed similar, and she
right.
basically says that was a good friend of mine. We always dress the same.
Yeah, again, it's just to help promote the doubt, like, she's been replaced. Somebody came in, but I guess it's just all it was. It was just a coincidence. Just like I can't remember how it works in the remake, but there was that whole thing in the remake about colored contacts, right? And you start to finally see that there's something going on between Elias and Lucas, because Lucas insists she's lying, but then Elias goes back and finds out there really are colored contacts. I don't know if that's in the original.
The contacts? I don't believe so.
No, although they do say something about her eyes.
I'll tell you what I would like to see. I'd like to see it to where the kids are right. Like, I'd like to see where the mom is like a lizard person or something.
Well, they try to give you a taste of that in the remake with that scene where it's like, like she is some sort of monster or something like that. I don't know. The movie's trying to, that's to sort of take us one direction just to take us in the other, which is, this is about dealing with loss and grief and guilt and denial. That's really, so that would really completely change the spirit of the movie. Trying to show, this is what this kid has been reduced to. He can't accept the death of his brother, thinks he's still around, and then he gets so weird and paranoid that just the fact that she's got bandages on, is acting short with him, is enough to convince him that his mother's been replaced. And it's all psychological stuff. So if she had really been replaced, it'd be a completely different kind of movie.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be cool to you find out at the very end that they were right.
An extra twist. Yeah. How about she's fireproof? She walks out of the barn and she's just like, okay, now to go kill some kids. I don't know. Sequel. Come on, sequel, people.
Yeah.
But that'll wrap us up, I guess. I think. I know this one we kind of blathered on about a few different things about music and fast food and stuff. But oh well, that's going to happen from time to time. But I can't say for sure if we're going to do our series next, but we're very close to our series. I'm going to start trying to do some background work for that because we want to do a series. And all I'm going to say is it's focused on one director. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a few films by the same director. We're not going to say who. And that's what we're getting towards. That might not be next time, but we're getting close. So we're both going to start talking about that and finding, what films we can find by this director. So that's what we're moving towards. But it might not be next week. Next week might just be another standalone movie. We're going to work that out. So, but we wanted to let you know that is on the horizon, that we're finally going to do another series. We haven't done a series in a long time.
We finally did our commentary for Mortal Kombat, the movie.
Oh yeah,
over
so
on
you can check that out on
your
my channel. Orc is with us for that. Yeah, I'm still disappointed you don't love it the way we do, but oh well.
I can appreciate it.
It's, I mean, at the very least, it's fun. I'm so disappointed in the remake. I really wanted to like the remake, and like I said, I really like the Sub-Zero Scorpion stuff, but the rest really falls short for me. Still hope they make a sequel to it anyway, just to get there. But yeah, if you haven't seen that, it was fun to finally get that done, and hopefully it won't take us years to do another one with the three of us together. We'll definitely do that. So my sleep's all fucked up. So I assume moving into the weekend, either on my own or with other people, I'll at least do some sort of live commentary. So that'll be also something going on. And tomorrow, I think Jess and I are resuming our series on animated movies. So we've got a really weird one tomorrow, I think, if people won't have time to check that out. It's a very odd one with a very old character, is all I'll say. And it's not Mickey Mouse, but we could say it's a contemporary of Mickey Mouse. Okay, that's a pretty big hint. All right. So thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in, and we'll be back soon. And if the next one isn't the series, we're getting pretty close to a series. So hopefully be excited for that. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you all soon.
Cool. See you later, guys. Thanks for watching.